Welcome, YouTubers. Yep, it's your self-proclaimed favorite host, Cornell Westside, and I'll be taking you through today's session of the AV Club. Today, we'll be covering The Last of Us. But before we get started, I'm going to ask you a very, very important mission. Please, go ahead and smash, smash it again, that like button. Because if you don't,
we lose.
The title of this episode, which is obviously the series premiere, is titled When You're Lost in the Darkness. And from my judgment of gameplay, captures about from the first mini-movie when you first start the game until about half an hour into gameplay or mini-movie worth of gameplay, I would say. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the game, don't worry. We will not be spoiling anything that happens in the game that could potentially happen in the series. I will try my best not to do that. And if you really want to know things that I can predict that will happen later on in the series, I'll leave a section at the end of this video so that we can go ahead and theorize and go ahead and talk about things, because we know they're not going to keep everything the same. But we can theorize and think about what can happen toward the end of this season, next season, 6 seasons down the head, however we want to go about things. So I'll leave that section at the later end of this video. We open to a scene of a broadcast in 1968 where a doctor played by John Hannah from The Mummy, one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm sorry, I know it was Egypt and it was whitewashed, but yeah, I love The Mummy. I'm a 90s kid. But nonetheless, he explains the future of the virus that we will see later on in the show. He talks about how a fungus called cordyceps can take over a host body and brain and use it to spread on its own. Although he assures that they will not currently take over humans due to them not needing to until the earth warms. Now, obviously, this is leading us to talk about things such as climate change and global warming, which in 2003, which is where the show actually takes place in the next time jump, I would say, was a big topic because of our good old friend Al Gore, who was running for president at the time. And what's scary about this concept, because obviously, and within every zombie-esque horror type, end of the world thing like this, you have to set the rules, right? And that's what John Hannah's character is doing for us. He's letting us know where the virus came from. Because in a video game, we really didn't know anything. We just know that, we were a little white girl one day, and then we were attacked, and then we were a grown man the next day. And these are playable characters I'm talking about. But yeah, we actually didn't know where the virus came from. So John Hannah's character gives us kind of an insight to it. But the real life implications here is that I remember seeing this on the Nature Channel, watching it with my dad one day, because this actually happens to a species of ants specifically. I guess the fungus leaves pheromones or spores for the ants to find, and then it makes them climb the trees to where they're more abundant. And then once the fungus gets inside of the ant, it destroys the ant from the inside out. But if it actually wants to keep the ant alive and get more food, it'll take over its brain and actually control the ant like a puppet. And in some cases, it can take over its memory portion of his brain and then walk it back to the ant colony and spread the fungus to the entire ant colony, which is weird. So again, this is real life stuff. Shout out to the writers that paid attention in biology class. We seeing y'all now. Y'all seen. Y'all heard. Did anybody else notice that during the one band, one sound speech that John Hannah gave, that everybody in the audience gave this really ominous look, and it was all toward him as he was talking about them just obsessing over one thing? Ugh, spooky. One Easter egg we can mention here is that the opening credits for the show and the opening credits for the video game are pretty much exactly the same, with the cordyceps actually just creating just cityscapes and different things that were for the opening credits. One thing that was different from the video game and the show is that in the video game, when we have what I would call the preset to the actual environment, which is basically all the scenes with Sarah in them, are set in 2013, which is when the original game first came out. In the show, obviously, as we see right now, it's set in 2003, because in both series and the game, they aged Joel up 20 years. So in the game, it went from 2013 to 2033 is when the actual game takes place. And here it's from 2003, and then the show takes place in 2023, present day. We meet Sarah for the first time, and lo and behold, Sarah is black, y'all. they turned Sarah black. No, in the video game, Sarah is definitely a white girl, and now she is looks like more of an interracial child. But nonetheless, when I seen Sarah's face, I just knew, you know, if you played the game, you know what's gonna happen. So, spoiler alert. I mean, hopefully you've watched the episode by now and know what happened, because it's exactly the same thing happened in the game. But we're introduced to Tommy, Joel's brother, as we find out that it's also Joel's birthday, just like in the video game. In the game, you actually had to go through a drawer to find a birthday card that Sarah had gave to him, where she kind of explains that he's kind of a strange father who was not really around a lot.
Literally, today.
I know, I'll be done by 9. By 9, right? Yeah. I'll bring back a cake.
One other thing that was cool about this episode is there was a lot of scenes that pretty much mirror what happened in the video game, as you'll point out a lot through this video.
Can't frame until we pour. We're not getting paid until we frame. Well, we could bring someone else on and get the job done faster.
Tommy, listen to me. He is the contractor. He's the contractor, okay? I can't lose this job.
And in the spirit of going in drawers, we see Sarah go through one and do some sketchy stuff in this next scene, but all is forgiven later on in the episode. But she also pulls out that pocket knife that, if you play the game, you also know that we used very much throughout it. It's pretty much your primary weapon, I think, if you're using Ellie, who we get introduced to later on in the episode. After that, we get introduced to some neighbors who we got a little backstory from, who we didn't get in the game, but we're introduced a lot different in the game.
It's the Coopers. Something ain't right with them. I think they're sick.
What kind of sick?
Oh, don't worry, it's coming. But right now, they give us a little bit of backstory about who they are and their lives and everything like that. The next scene is kind of important because when Sarah gets to school, she sees one of her classmates actually showing symptoms of having the cordyceps starting to take over his body. When you see that nervous tick, you'll see later on in the episode, when they have like the warning of like symptoms and everything, that what this guy right here is doing is pretty much a warning sign that he's pretty much going to become a cordyceps or a zombie. In the next scene, we see Sarah actually uses the money to go and get Joel's watch fixed because, yes, she's going to give it to him for his birthday later on in the episode, just like in the game. Also, there was a lot of foreshadowing going on in this scene. I mean, you had the cop cars rolling by looking like they was going to get to an emergency. Then you had the lady coming out telling her to run home, basically. But yeah, we know basically after this, stuff is about to hit the fan. And it gets even worse in the next scene when we get back to the neighbor's house to make those sweet butter biscuits. We see that the oldest neighbor is now starting to turn even more. When Sarah goes to check out those DVDs in the background, we see her get to twitching even more. And I for one, thought that she was going to get up and start attacking her. But nope, we're going to see that a little bit later in the episode. By the way, did y'all see the way the dog was looking at her? Man, I swear, if you want to survive the apocalypse, get a dog. Because he was looking at Granny like, something is going on here. Now, the next scene is very intimate and important, and honestly, I like it a lot, and it's in the video game, and it's in the show, pretty much verbatim with the line, so I'm going to just let it play for a little bit and see if y'all like it and get to see a little bit of the way that they capture a lot of what's in the game.
What's this?
Your birthday? You kept complaining about your broken watch. So I figured, you know. Fix it for you. You like it?
Honey, this is... It's
What?
nice, but I...
Did you?
What?
I don't hear anything.
That was lame. You were lame.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's stuck. It's not...
What? No. Oh, ha ha.
Where'd you get the money for this?
Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs.
Where did you get the money for this?
Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs.
It's better when I do.
So as you can see, they stick to the script pretty well. And it's funny that we get a little bit of a more foreshadowing, because guess what your future is, Joel?
Oxy? Hydro.
In the next scene, Tommy calls Joel because he needs to be bailed out of jail for fighting at a bar, which leads Joel to leave the house. And this actually sets us up for the first scene that actually comes in the video game, which you can actually play. And in that first scene, you're actually playing as Sarah, just walking around the house trying to figure out what's going on and why Joel is gone. Oh, and look, Sarah has stumbled upon that good old guitar that Joel knows how to play oh so very well.
If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself.
That didn't suck.
Beautiful, just so beautiful, don't you agree? Now, in this next scene is why I say you gotta get a dog for the post-apocalypse, because the dog is the only one that escaped the Adler house. Look at it. He came over to even warn Sarah, but no, Sarah had to listen to the side of her that said go into danger in this part. Doggy dog got up out of there because he already knew what was going on. Grandma Adler was up in here tripping, just eating everybody. And we get to see our first zombie cordyceps. I still don't know what the show is going to call him, but we get to see our first one. And I love how they made their zombies look different from other zombies by making the cordyceps actually be shown when they're passing the virus on to the next person.
Tanisha, get back inside the house! You lock your doors now!
Tanisha not going to make it, Joel. None of the non-main characters do. Is that the Atlas trying to come out and invite us over for some more sweet butter biscuits? Nah, we good, fam. Now, these next couple scenes from the show are pulled directly out of the video game, as you can see.
Take 71.
That's where I'm headed.
Daddy,
We don't know. They're saying it's a virus, some kind of parasite.
it's it from terrorists?
We don't know.
Are we sick?
No, of course not.
Did they say how many are dead?
Probably a lot. They found this one family all mangled inside their
Tommy.
house. Right.
Are we sick?
No, of course not.
God. It's Jimmy's place.
Holy hell. That's Lewis's farm. I hope that sumbitch made it out.
The Adlers were taking Anna to the city. To the hospital for stuff.
We're good.
Didn't Jimmy work in the city?
That's right, he did.
Fuck! Everybody has the same fucking idea.
This is bad. Everyone and their mother had the same damn idea.
So you pretty much get the picture. The show and the video game are pretty much just alike here. They even teased us with the crash that actually took the vehicle out in the video game in the show. Then, unfortunately, we come to one of the saddest parts of the episode where if you played the game, you knew this was going to happen once you've seen Sarah. But once Tommy and Joel get separated, they come across the armed guard who, upon hearing that, I think actually after watching the show as opposed to playing the game, I think once they heard that Sarah was injured, once Joel said that she had a messed up ankle, I think that the armed guard got the go-ahead to shoot her. Yeah, like I said, after watching the show as opposed to playing the game, I think that he got the orders just because she was injured and they didn't want to take any chances. So you see what played out here. Sarah got taken out.
Listen to me, I know this hurts, baby.
I know, baby, I know.
And whether it was animated or whether it was in real life, this one was hard to watch. I mean, shout out to the show for really capturing this moment, but the video game, I think it won this moment. I think Sarah video game won this one. Now it's 20 years later, and now it's 2023 as opposed to 2033 in the game. And we are in post-apocalyptic times. And now we see this weird kid walking up to this FEDRA base. FEDRA is an organization that we'll learn a lot about. FEDRA is pretty much the I would say the not government, but kind of like the authority governing body right now during the times. And in this FEDRA base, we actually get a glimpse of a sign which explains the symptoms for how you can tell if someone's turning into a cordyceps or zombie. And we still haven't figured out what we're going to be calling them. But basically, if they have any type of nervous tics, it looks like. And it also looks like if you get bitten in different places on the body, that you turn in different time period. So if you get bitten on the leg, then you got about 24 hours. If you get bitten on the head, then you got about 5 to 15 minutes, which makes sense because they take over the brain. So I guess it's pretty much however long it takes for the I keep wanting to call them the shrooms, but the virus is spreading into your brain.
How did you get this?
And in our first scene, we see FEDRA is out here playing no games because this is a back-to-back scenes where we have 2 kids not making it to the future. Especially this one was bad because they euthanized him just like immediately after finding out that he was infected. She assured them that he was going to be safe.
You're safe.
And in the next scene, cold-blooded. But this scene is actually important because guess who we run into again? And guess what he's doing? Holding another child, except this time, he has no remorse and just throws him into the fire. In this show and in the game, we get introduced to how the post-apocalyptic times are working here. We see that people are working for ration cards. We see that executions are a big thing going on, and that guards, mostly FEDRA, have a lot of camps where people live and work in. Joel's enjoying his new life as a street pharmacist, and we actually get our first mention of the Fireflies.
Stay off the streets for the next few nights. Fucking Fireflies been blowing shit up all week. 2 of our guys got shot this morning. Boss has got us working doubles. Guys are just being tired. It's easy to make a mistake in the dark.
The Fireflies, as we'll learn about a little bit later, are the anti-government body of the show, and they are pretty much the, I guess, freedom fighters. And whenever you see the term, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light, you just know that Fireflies are nearby. Next, we're introduced to Tess, which is Joel's, I guess, like lover / business partner, and they've been dealing with each other for a couple years now. They're very familiar. And this scene is actually kind of a backstory to the first scene in which we meet Tess in the game, in which we actually find out now that, according to this universe of TheLastofus, Tess lied to Joel, and she actually touches on it in the end of the scene where she says that Joel answers to her, so she'll just say that she got jumped by some guys, which she actually does end up telling him in the show and in the game, but we actually don't know in the game that she lied, as opposed to in the show. Next, we get our first glimpse of Ellie, who, just like in the game, is a very lively one. It looks like she's being held captive in a Firefly facility for some reason, but they're testing out her motor skills, it looks like, and there is a purpose to this, I promise, and we'll find out by the end of the episode. We catch up to Joel, who now has been estranged from Tommy for some time and has been looking for him, but just hasn't heard from him and starting to get worried.
You're a capable guy, but there are worse things than infected out there. I hear everything on this. There are raiders, there are slavers.
Now, my man was dropping a lot of Easter eggs because if you played the game again, you know that a lot of sadistic stuff happens in this first game. And he's basically alluding to, we're about to be in for a hell of a season. That's all I'll say right now. Again, we'll talk about some of my predictions later on in this video. Now here they gave the illusion of spores, which is something that is dealt with in the game, which is where you don't actually have to come into contact with the cordyceps or the deceased. You can actually just breathe in the spores, and then the spores can get into your body and spread that way. But the show decided not to do spores because they didn't want to do any gas masks, which is something that is heavily used in the game in order to avoid the spores.
Hold up. Spores.
And we get a glimpse of that watch that was fixed and broken on the same day that Sarah died. In the next scene, we're introduced to an important character named Marlene, who is actually voiced by the same actress who played by the same actress who voiced her in the video game. And she's actually the leader of the Fireflies. Now, in this scene, we see that she has some dissenting members who are trying to figure out what's going on, and she's being very secretive. But she actually explains to them that they're getting rid of all their efforts in order to get Ellie over into Wyoming to a FEDRA facility. I don't want to say why yet, but we will find out later in the season why Ellie is very important.
Don't worry, I don't want anything. If you're feeling lost,
Tell me to look for the light and I'll break your jaw.
Geez, Joel, he's just trying to recruit you to be a Firefly. You don't have to be so mean. In the next scene, we actually have a moment where she actually tells Ellie about her importance and what she will be to the world. They still don't want to reveal to the audience what that is yet, so I won't say it yet, but just know that Ellie now knows her importance to the world. She also makes a callback to Riley, who will be played by Storm Reed this season, who is a friend of Ellie in the DLC pack, not the main storyline of the game, but is a friend that she has a callback to that, let's just say that they're going to play out an important event that leads to why Ellie is very important. But Riley, unfortunately, is no longer around with us anymore. We all know Ellie needs her pocket knife. I mean, how are we going to kill zombies without that? Tess and Joel go down into the tunnels just like in the game, and they encounter the final form of the cordyceps virus, is what I'll just call it. And this is usually the form that we'll call spores to come out, but just like I said earlier, they decided not to do spores because of the gas mask. We catch up to old Robert with Tess and Joel, and he had a more peaceful exit in the show than in the game, I'll say just lightly.
Flies. Just go get them.
That is a stupid idea.
But it looks like he was up the same trick of trying to double cross them it looks like in the show he was trying to sell a car battery, and in the game he was selling guns. Either way, since Robert was trying to sell to the Fireflies, it leads Joel and Tess over to the Firefly headquarters where they meet Ellie for the first time. Here's where we found out Marlene had plans to move Ellie out of the safe zone tonight in order to get her to the camp with the Fireflies. But since she obviously is kind of shot and her other partner doesn't have an ear, she decides to ask Joel and Tess to smuggle them out of town.
Smuggling her?
There's a crew of Fireflies that'll meet you at the Capitol building.
That's not exactly close.
You're capable. You hand her off, come back, the weapons are yours.
Go to your crew at the State House. Before we hand her over, they give us everything that we want. If not, we kill her. There and then. Deal.
Really?
This looks like it's gonna be a beautiful friendship, doesn't you think?
You guys.
You mumble in your sleep.
You mumble in your sleep.
Now in the next scene, I think we got a lot of characterization points that are very important to our two main characters, Joel and Ellie. Ellie begins to kind of break down a little bit from that hardened kid that we seen earlier, because she trusts Marlene. And since she trusts Marlene and Marlene is trusting Joel, she decides to try and put her trust into Joel as well. As we find out throughout the series, Ellie is just looking for someone to trust. And Joel is kind of different from when we met him in the beginning of this episode, where he was a very loving person and he loved everyone. But as you can see, he pointed a gun at Ellie just a minute ago. So it's important to establish their characters here so that we can see them change throughout the season.
Deal with you anyway, you some kind of bigwig's daughter or something?
I found that line funny because it's actually from the movie that's based on another video game that's pretty much the same gameplay as this, which is Resident Evil. And the second one is what I'm talking about, specifically when they had to go through the city because the head scientist's daughter wanted to be on the airplane or something like that. But yeah, just thought that was funny. Now in the next scene, which is pretty much the last scene of the episode, we run back into the guard as they're trying to smuggle Ellie out of the city. We run back into the same guard earlier that Joel was trying to sell, was selling drugs to. And a lot of people, I think, didn't like the way that the guard reacted. But to be honest, I think he was justified because he did say,
stay off the streets for the next few nights.
But I mean, he still didn't have to act brand new, but you know, whatever, teach his own. But Ellie, she had another agenda in her mind. She knew that she had a secret going on, and she knew that that little scanner was going to mess up that secret. So she decided to stab the soldier anyway, to make sure that they don't find out what's going on. But yeah, it didn't really work. Luckily, Joel's instinct as a father kicked back in once he saw Ellie, and he knew that last time with Sarah, he didn't defend his daughter. And so this time he wasn't going to make the same mistake. So he attacked the soldier because of his inability 20 years ago.
I thought we were just gonna hold him up or something.
Now, when Tess sees that Ellie's test turned red, she immediately gets alarmed, obviously, and goes to Joel and tells him that she's infected, in which Ellie describes that her, and I'm trying to say this in the most spoiler free way. Her bite is 3 weeks old and that she can't be infected because it's 3 weeks old. And since we know that people usually turn in less than 24 hours, that she's not going to turn. Now, there's a reason for all this, and yes, this all makes sense, but we will find this out more on the next episode. Now, in the final wrap-up scene, we get an homage to the pause screen, which is also a window with rain pouring down on it. And then in the very, very last scene, if you look very, very hard, you'll see a clicker. Look, there it is. And that pretty much wraps it up for this video. I know I was going to make a section for my predictions, but just put some of your predictions that you think is going to happen in the season. We can talk about it in the comments. I don't want to spoil it for too many people because I know a lot of people may not have played the video game. So we'll talk about those things later on in the season when a lot of things have kind of shaked up a little bit more. And I kind of hope they do change a couple things because there's a lot of characters who I don't want to say goodbye to. We all know one big character who I'm talking about, which would probably happen in maybe like season 3, 4 maybe, but still, I wouldn't want to see that happen. So again, I hope they change some of the source material. I don't know how they would, but I hope to see it. And if you made it to this far in the video, I thank you, truly. I thank you. This is my first video I've made in a long time, and it's been good to get back to it. So if you like it, I hope that you liked it. If you made it to this far in the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch for more content. Go ahead and get those alerts going so we can, so you'll be on board for the next video.